Welcome into the Autzen Audibles Podcast. Matt Preem, Eric Scopel, Jared Mack. We're all on the show today. It's our preview episode ahead of Oregon versus Portland State. The Ducks kick off at 12 o'clock on the Pac-12 networks against the Vikings. Roxy Bernstein and Lincoln Kennedy are on the call for that on TV. Make sure to go to duckterritory.com right now for game preview stuff, our post-game coverage, our in-game coverage. And if you're not a VIP subscriber, you can get 50% off an annual subscription right now to duckterritory.com. Or if you're a subscriber and you listen to the show and you pay month to month, you're able to upgrade that and save a huge chunk of money as well to an annual subscription. So go check that out. No betting line for this one. Obviously, it's Portland State. They don't really release them at all. If they do, it's usually the day of the game. I am checking the ESPN app real quick. Sometimes they do have like a fake betting line, and it's not there.
I've seen a fake betting line from Bet Online. It's last time I checked, it was minus 42.5 for Oregon. So
oof,
that could be the betting line that we go off of if you'd like.
Sure. 42.5 is what we'll save that for later down the road. But guys, let's dive into this one real quick. We're not going to do too much. This is who Portland State is. These are the players that have backstories, but more so of just like what we're excited to see because it's week one. I think all of us are going to pick not only an Oregon victory, but probably a blowout victory. I think it'd be a surprise if one of us didn't pick a blowout victory. So I'll start off first here. I'm just really excited to see the defense and their physicality and their team speed. Like two kind of areas we saw notably improvements of with guys getting bigger. Like Jamal Hill just looks significantly bigger than he did a year ago. Jeffrey Bossa looks significantly bigger than he did a year ago. You look up front, the defensive line, guys are in better shape or guys have gotten bigger. The defense was atrocious in 2022, and I don't think we're not gonna walk away from 2020 the season opener against Portland State saying this is like the 85 Bears. Like we're not gonna sit here and say the defense is just indestructible. You can't beat them against Portland State. The Vikings shouldn't be good, but we should see some traits that good defenses show, like rallying to the football and ball carriers getting like 2 yards and then like 4 guys pushing him backwards. We should see quarterbacks from Portland State getting hit and put on their backs often. We should see, the quarterback be sped up when he's going through his progressions because he's concerned about the pass rush. We should be seeing turnovers. Like this is just a defense that was so bad last year. I want to see what they look like this year and kind of where guys fit within that defense.
I think the defense is going to look great on Saturday, but that's not going to tell us too much, unfortunately, Matt. We're not going to get the full story until we get into Texas Tech. And then after that, once honestly, Colorado and Stanford will pose some challenges, but that Washington game coming out of the bye is really when we're going to get some feeling here because even last year, like Oregon took care of business against a lot of the weaker teams, but like when they played Washington, we saw the issues. When they played Oregon State, we saw the issues, obviously Georgia. So I'm with you. I'm really excited to see all this come together, and this kind of is a tie-in for me. But I'm just really excited to see all the transfers that we haven't really seen play at Oregon, and it's like a really long list. And you look through our depth chart projection, and like both Jared and I do offense, he does defense, have half a dozen guys in our starting lineup or our 2 deeps right now that are transfer new guys. So there's just a lot of names to know that we haven't really seen play together, and like. You could go through a lot of the position groups and go like they've completely reworked their offensive line, or not completely, but a lot of that looks different. The receiving room looks a lot different than it did a year ago. There are new faces at tight end, like just across the board. There's a lot of newness, and then defensively, it's even larger. That whole secondary could look a lot different from what it looked last year. The linebacking core, depending on health, could be different. There's obviously the Jordan Birch addition up front is a significant one. That's maybe one of the guys I'm most excited to just kind of dial in on and see how he performs. And again, we won't learn a ton against Portland State, I think is just the through line, but seeing some of the newness for the first time, playing together. We watched them in the spring, but as Jared reminded us both times, these guys all play on the same team. In the spring game, they were going against each other. It's going to be exciting for us. And I'll say it, this isn't meant as a huge jab, but we've gone through spring and fall without really seeing any 11 on 11. And so for I think the three of us, I'm just also excited to see all the pieces fit, where they fit together.
Right.
But there's so many new pieces that's probably the biggest part of this, kind of just seeing what these guys look like together out there.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with both of you guys. I obviously am excited to go and watch a football game for the first time in a couple months. Like that's going to take precedence over everything. But at the same time, like, there's a lot that we're going to learn from this first game on both the offensive and defensive side of the ball in terms of personnel packages, what a scheme looks like, what this player looks like, and what position. All the transfer portal guys, all the potential freshmen who might have the chance to play in the second half, because I don't think the game is going to be that close, or at least on paper, I don't think the game is going to be that close. I think it's I'm not. This is going to sound mean. I'm not overly interested in how Portland State is. Like, I don't think it's going to be I don't think Oregon's going to struggle on either side of the ball. Like, I am more interested in what you guys have already brought up, and the point that I'd like to see who's on the field at what given moment. I'd like to see how they line up. I want to see what position these guys are playing in. This is all like a direct descendant of Dan Lanning's inability to let us go and watch practices. So, Eric, I will take the heat and complain about this on a public podcast for everybody to hear.
Thank you, Jared. Thank you.
We did not get to see Jack
Anything.
Diddley. And so this first game for us is going to be like, you guys who are listening, you guys who aren't listening, who are in the fan section, the students that are like the 7 students that are here for school. This will be the first time for you guys. This will be the first time for us as well. And I think that's what I'm most excited to see. I think that's the biggest thing for me going into this game is just where guys line up, what they do, how they look. Because for as much as Oregon, I think, has improved on both sides of the ball in terms of finding a need, getting a fit for it, there's still a lot of question marks. And I have no idea if those will be answered. And they probably won't really be answered against Portland State, but we'll have a better idea if they're trending in the right direction. Like, I listened to the coaches show last night with Dan, and then Bo Nix talked at the end. Dan said that the biggest improvement he's seen from his defense this season is tackling. And we all remember what Oregon looked like tackling, A, in the Georgia game, and then B, over the course of the season. So for him to go out and say that on the coaches show, albeit he can't tell us during his press conferences, which is another whole story, but that's an important thing that I want to go and look at. I want to see the physicality of what Tyson Johnson and a guy like Kyrie Jackson, what those guys bring, some SEC guys to the Pac-12. It's just more of a personal thing, like a selfish, like I want to see, rather than what I'm looking forward to in the game, because I don't think the game's going to be that close or that important.
Do we think like the defense, like what's for Portland? We obviously aren't high on Portland State, and nor should we be. They're not elite, even at the FCS level. It's not like Eastern Washington when it was 2015 when they came to town. But like, at what point do we walk away saying like, wow, maybe the defense is greatly improved? Like, is there a number of points or yards, or maybe the most pressures, or is that just not even possible
from this game?
Yeah.
No, I don't think it's possible. I mean, I honestly, I still believe, like, I don't know if I'm going to have like a real true sense of this until the Washington game is really how I feel. Because like I said earlier, like the Oregon actually held up pretty well against some of the type of teams that are about to play. Like, they beat Colorado by a boatload last year. I know that team's going to be better. They beat Stanford pretty convincingly a year ago. That team's going to be worse. Like, those are the teams that are. I mean, the Texas Tech game, I guess, is the first test, and I think that will tell us something. But Washington's a bit of a different animal in terms of what that offense is and what we saw a year ago and the challenges it put on this defense. And so to me, that's the barometer right now, is like, that was the game. That was the besides the Georgia game, which is like, I don't even know, like that felt like it was playing a pro team and Oregon didn't have a chance. Like within 10 minutes, we knew the outcome.
Yes. No.
And it was like, yeah, this isn't going to be good. Against Washington, like that was a really competitive game where both sides offensively had a lot of success, but the Oregon's defense obviously wasn't up to task and got beat in ways that were unique to what we'd seen for other parts of the season, at least on a consistent basis. So for me, that's the game. Like, I think coming out of the bye week, hopefully they've taken care of business. Hopefully they're doing mental math. You're 5-0 going into that point. And that they've looked good defensively. But for me, like, that's the point of the year where I'm going to feel like coming out of that game, if they win and the defense does its job, you're going to have a lot more confidence in how the rest of the season goes. And the flip side is, of course, true too. If they lose and it looks ugly, I think you're going to be kind of discouraged going into Washington State and Utah, which are the next games after it.
I think we'll be able to tell some things on the defensive side of the ball from this Portland State game. I agree with Eric. I don't really think it's going to be a good barometer of how successful they will be over the course of the season. But I think speed is going to be something that you can kind of come away with, because if you go through and rewatch some of Oregon's highlights last year, or some of their lowlights, whatever you prefer, this defense wasn't that fast. Just overall, there were fast guys like Christian Gonzalez, or even Bassa is fast for a linebacker. But overall, going east to west, which is something I've talked about on this podcast a lot, like they were just a slower overall team. So I think that's something that will kind of be obvious, is just how quickly Oregon can get to guys in open field and then bring them down. And then just kind of the physicality, and then the open field tackling, to see if they are an improved improved tackling team, like Dan has talked about. Because Sasha Ray, the quarterback of Portland State, he's going to be active. He's going to get out of sacks. He's going to be running east and west, north, south. He's going to be in the open field. And this was a significant problem for Oregon's defense last year. See Michael Penix, see Cam Ward at Washington State. Like, see a lot of any of the mobile quarterbacks that Oregon played last year. They had trouble wrapping up, and then even wrapping up in the pocket, and then wrapping up on the perimeter or on the sideline. So I think those are two things that you can kind of get a feel for, at least. But I agree with Eric. It's going to be really difficult to take any real statements from this defense out of the first game. But I think Texas Tech should be a good barometer, because they're going to pass a lot, and that was the issue with Oregon's defense last year.
All right, let's dive into it was asked to be brought back. Let's dive into the stock report. We're going to make new picks. We're going to buy new stocks of players. Hopefully, I don't do as atrocious as it did last year.
Who won last year? I know it wasn't Matt.
It was not me. I can tell you
It was you,
that.
Eric. Yeah.
Returning champion. I actually couldn't remember if
returning champ.
I couldn't remember.
No, you got me by a good bit, actually.
Was it?
Yeah.
Okay. I know. Yeah. Matt didn't understand the exercise. Was what he told us afterwards, and
right.
felt. But now he does.
No. It's not I didn't understand it. I just executed it poorly.
Okay.
I treated it too much like real life, which was my downfall. We'll see if I learned my lesson. I don't know. I probably didn't.
We shall see. So overall, if those are listening are unfamiliar, I think we talked about this 2 weeks ago, something like that. This is an Oregon player stock price game. If you listen to the Ryan Russillo podcast on The Ringer, I directly stole this from them, where they do a quarterback stock price game, where they take a player's like QBR or quarterback's QBR and then divide it by 10. And then that's the share that's the player's share, or the price of their share. So I've done that with every potential contributing member for Oregon on offense or defense, except for offensive linemen and place kickers and punters, because, it's kind of like the fantasy football. Like, you can draft defensive players, but no one's going to draft an offensive lineman. They don't keep track of pancakes like that. So my formula this year has been changed. Shout out to Josh McCallum on Twitter. He suggested a couple of edits to my formula, and I did so. He said to focus on more like efficiency from players. So I had last year, my formula was, like receptions plus yards plus touchdowns times 2 plus games played divided by 100, and then that gave me the share price of a player. This year I did, receptions, yards, touchdowns times 2, but then I divided it by games played. So it's more of an efficient. It tracks more of like how efficient was the player, how many yards and stuff did they put up in X amount of games. So it kind of showcases who's really talented, who brings a lot to the table every game that they play. So that was a good suggestion, and for that reason, the price of the shares went up. The price of the
inflation has arrived even in this world.
Yeah, even in this world. So like last year, I got it right here. Like Troy Franklin last year finished the season, his price per share was $12.24. So that was catches plus yards plus touchdowns times 2 plus games played divided by 100, an arbitrary number of 100. So it was finished at $12.24 a share. This year, when you divide his total career stats divided by 23 games that he's played in, his price per share is now $52. 2 weeks ago on the podcast, we said that we were going to have $500 per person to invest in, as we did last season. No more. We would not be able to really make any money here. So we went to 1,000. We doubled it. I think this is a more accurate representation of who is the most valuable player on this team. So I like it. I mean, I did the formula, so I'm probably going to like it, but I think it does a better job than I did last year. So how do we want to start this, gentlemen? Who wants to go first?
You go first.
I will go first. Okay. All right. So we had $1,000 total. I started it off. My philosophy, I'll go through that real quick. My philosophy was, since we're focused on efficiency, I wanted to invest in players who don't have a lot of games played under their belt, but I know that, I theorize that they're going to be playing a lot. I don't really know because we don't see anything, excuse me. So I wanted to look at guys who had a lower games played, but I know would play a high volume role, and their stats would keep going up as the season goes along. So my first pick was Trayshawn Holden. I put $200 into him, which comes out to 7.93 shares. We're going to do the split share thing because rounding, whatever. I put $200 into him. He's at $25.20 a share. I think that, he's going to play, as long as he's healthy, he's going to play all 12, 13 games for Oregon this year. And I think that he's going to be an intricate part of the offense, kind of that Chase Cota role last year as a Z receiver. So that was my first overall pick. And then I went with Troy Franklin, another wide receiver. I put $300 into him. So his price per share I just went over is $52.22. He only has 23 games played.
Yep.
Like, he has fewer games played in his career than Josh Delgado. So that's
a wild stat.
Yeah. So there you go. And he already has 1,100 yards, 79 receptions, and 11 touchdowns. He could double his yardage total this year from 1,100 to 2,200. I went through the stats last year, and he had like one catch for 41 yards against Colorado. Like, if he has multiple catches per game, he's going to get over 1,000 yards this year. I put it in our prediction for Eric on our Duck Territory roundtable. So I'm high on Franklin. I think everybody should be. So I did $300 of him for 5.75 shares. So that's half my budget. I'm already down to $500 here. Then we go to the defensive side. I did not invest in a quarterback. I did not invest in a running back because Bo Nix's price per share is the highest on the team at $134 a share for obvious reasons. And then I never invested in running backs. I think they're an unnecessary investment. So I'm with Jim Irsay in the don't pay Jonathan Taylor camp.
Oh, man.
Well, just be better with your tweets. Just handle your tweets better. That's all.
Yes. I will try to not spend $15 million to get a killer whale back in the ocean. I put $200 into Kyrie Jackson. I thought this is a steal. Kyrie Jackson has I really like this pick. And now I lost it on my page. But Kyrie Jackson, I bought 15 shares of him as a player. Yes?
I think it's like $12 a share.
Yes.
Yeah, I can't remember. I can't find it.
Yeah,
right now.
I thought it was a great deal too.
Oh, I have him under Kyrie. Sorry. So yeah, he's $13 a share.
Yeah.
So I bought $200 worth of that because he only played in 13 games. He only has 14 career tackles. He just didn't play in a lot. And so if he plays in all 13 games and I think he's going to be the cornerback number 1. Like, he's going to get a crap ton of playing time and a lot of stats. So I like that pick. And then for my final $300, I divided it equally, $100 a pop, into 3 people: Jordan Birch, Popo Amavai, and then Mateo Uyunglele. Now, I'll quickly explain the true freshman. I really had no idea what to do here.
Yeah.
So I took their top 247 rankings, turned it into a decimal point. So if they were, Mateo is like 98, and I put it 0.98 and then multiplied it by 2.5. So the price per share are all very similar for the true freshmen. They're all really low, but given Dan's history of playing true freshmen, I don't know if he'll play a lot of them, but I know he'll play Mateo. So $100 to Birch, Popo, and Mateo Uyunglele. That's 2.5 shares of Birch, 3.72 shares of Popo, and then 41 shares of Mateo. So Mateo is going to be my 4-bagger. My dad taught me this. You kind of invest in this. If he, quadruples in his price per share by the end of the season, and you've made enough money that you don't have to worry about whatever else you did in your investment. Like, he's going to cover up the deficit. So that's my $1,000. Again, Holden, Franklin, Kyrie Jackson, Jordan Birch, Popo Amavai, and Mateo Uyunglele.
I like it. I took a different approach, but I think, and it's probably because we like the same players and have a similar feeling on some of the guys, but we prioritize, I think, a similar group of players for most of our money. I like running backs more, but we can talk about that when it's my turn.
It is your turn.
Well, I didn't know, Matt. Did you have any?
Is it?
Well, I don't know. Was it my? I'll go. Okay.
Yeah, you go.
Okay. So I split this up into 3 groups, and I spent $150 on 3 players that I consider to be like blue chip stocks, like they're pretty tried and true. 75 on players that I think can really like take a big step here. This is where I have like the Kyrie, the Mateos,
Right.
And then $25 on kind of just guys I kind of like. I didn't really know what to do, but I wanted to just have a little bit more exposure. So Jared had 6 players. I have 13 that I invested in. This might be what Matt did last year, and this might be the same downfall where he kind of had too wide of a net. But my blue chip, I spent $150 on both running backs, Whittington and Bucky, and then on Troy Franklin. And again, I wanted to invest at least a high percentage of it on guys who I think I'm pretty confident in terms of achievement. Like that's just like baseline. That money is not going to be. I don't think I'm losing money on any of these. Is my thought. Now, am I getting a big boom on any of these? Probably not. Franklin, maybe. Whittington and Bucky being 2 that I think are probably just going to be maybe a little bit, small little improvements, hopefully. And then my $75 group here, I have Tez, I have Ferguson, I have Birch, Tyshim Johnson, Kyrie Jackson, and Mateo. And I thought between Tez and Ferguson, those are 2 guys who, like Ferguson's value, I don't have it in front of me, and Jared, you probably do. I think it probably would surprise folks a little bit considering how high we are on him. Like he hasn't produced at, like, what is it? It's about 20-ish, I think.
2380.
Yeah, I thought that was a really good deal. So I bet about a little over 3 stocks in him. Tez, I've talked about a lot. I'm really high on, and then I basically picked my favorite 3 transfer defensive players: Birch, Tyshim Johnson, Kyrie Jackson, and I threw Mateo in there because to Jared's point, the value is ridiculous. So I've got 60 shares or something like that, and 50 shares. I don't know what it is in Mateo. I just think the value is really good because to Jared's point, I think he's going to actually play quite a bit, and like the production could be there. He's definitely the only true freshman that I feel pretty confident has a role all the way through the year. So I felt like that was a good value. And then my $25, let's just take a shot on these guy group. I have Jurion Dickey, which is a complete dart throw. That's just a cheap stock. And I figure, hey, maybe there's an injury. Maybe he ends up playing more than we think at the end. I've got Jeff Bassa. That was a tough one because I don't know how much more he'll improve his standing because he's actually produced a little bit already in his career. But I'm high on him taking a step. And then Devin Jackson and Popo Amavai are 2 guys that I'm very high on who haven't had a ton of production, at least in the last year or so. So that was how I spent it. So like I said, I split into 3 groups.
So I think I went in between you 2. Last year I overexposed myself. I was thinking 10 was going to be a lot for this one. And I think I'm the only one. I did this last year too. I'm the only one that like factored in whole shares and tried to figure out how much could I actually get
Right.
from
Oh
all the, it's close to $1,000 as I could get.
possible.
So I bought 10 players.
Yeah.
I was
I
I was gonna do that. Sorry, I was gonna do that, but I was at a car dealership and I didn't have a real calculator. Like I couldn't really efficiently do it all, so I just made it mine pretty
That's
broad.
fair. I think I did that idea last year, Matt, where it was like I'm gonna go for like shares of players rather than like no money. And I was just I just got annoyed by like how much math I had to do.
That was where I was basically. Yeah.
This year I was like, screw it. I'm just doing $200, $300. So I get it.
I went 5 players that I feel like are going to play a lot and are going to perform at a high level and I can get good value at. And then I went 5 players that are really cheap stocks, and I'm hoping 2 of those 5 basically hit and like what Jared said are 4 or 5x of what they are at the beginning of the season. So I'll start with my 5 guys I think are players. Terrence Ferguson, I felt like he was very valuable. I bought 8 shares there. Trayshawn Holden, I wanted a receiver. I really wanted to buy Franklin, but my strategy couldn't allow it based off some other guys. So I felt like Holden was a good value there as well. 8 shares, which came out to be like a $204. And then Brandon Dorless, I wanted to add Dorless. I think he's going to go up, even though he's a very productive player. I think he's got better players around him, which is going to make him better. So 8 shares there. Kyrie Jackson, I agree with both of you. Unbelievable steal. 8 shares there of Kyrie Jackson. And then I went back and forth here. I almost didn't buy him and then decided I'm going to. Jordan Birch, 5 shares, which comes out at $192. It was very expensive. I originally had him at 10, which took a ton of my money because it's $38 essentially for him.
Yeah. Half your budget, Matt.
Yes, that was like the big issue. It's like I really want Jordan Birch, but I can't spend half my money on one player. That's too much. And then I went down to some guys that are cheaper on the share price list. And Mateo, like both you said, he's the only true freshman I feel confident is going to play. So I bought 5 shares of Mateo. I bought 5 shares of Devin Jackson because it's just $2, and we don't know what Justin Jacobs' health is going to be like. I think Jackson plays on special teams. Likelihood his value is going to go up even if it's minimal playing time. Kenyon Sadiq at 2.4 shares. He's a freak athlete. The tight end position, Casey Kelly didn't really practice this week. We don't know if he's available. Patrick Herbert is, I think, a solid option, but I don't think he's just like uber athlete. And maybe Kenyon Sadiq gets on the field and half the games and his value goes up. Jurion Dickey, I think he plays as a true freshman, 5-star receiver. Those guys don't redshirt. We could call them prima donnas because it's a position that's associated with it, but I don't think Jurion Dickey came to Oregon to redshirt his first season. It's unfair to call him a prima donna because we don't know if he is or not. But like that position, 5-stars don't come here to redshirt.
Yep.
So I think he's going to play. And then I already mentioned Mateo. And then the last but not least, I just had some money that I had to spend, and I couldn't tell myself I'm only going to spend buy 2 shares of a player. So I ended up buying 11 shares of Kyle Casper.
Wow.
As a throw in the dark throw. Let's see what happens. Maybe he catches 2 touchdowns this season and he goes from $167 to $3, and I've made some money.
You doubled your money.
Right.
Yeah.
Take that. I was gonna go and tell our listeners who the highest price per share people were on all sides of the ball. For offense, or at least the pass catchers, it's Tez Johnson, $54.61 a share. Yeah. So thought that was pretty interesting. But he has the most yards, he has the most receptions, most games played. A very productive player at Troy. And
The issue
Knicks,
though I had with
obviously,
Tez was like he did it at Troy, not at a Power 5 level. That was like the hardest
right.
one for me to buy.
Yeah, no, I get that. I feel good about Tez. Obviously, again, we haven't really seen him other than the spring game, but I think he's going to be productive. I just think that he's still going to run number 2 to Franklin for most of the offense, but um, he's going to be a significant upgrade over what Chris Hudson was in the slot last year. So we'll see how that goes. Bo Nix, unsurprisingly, the highest price per share on the team. I also redid the quarterback formula. Last year was the Ryan Russillo route where I went like QBR divided by 10, but then like he had Nix coming into Oregon had very similar QBR as Ty Thompson, so they were like equal share price last year. This year I did completion yards, touchdowns, all of those combined minus interceptions times 2, and then divided by games played. So Bo Nix's share price is $134.04.
Too much.
And Ty Thompson's is $9.55. So no disrespect to Ty, but this seems like a more accurate description of who is the more valuable quarterback in the room. Running backs, Bucky Irving, $82.56. Second most expensive guy on the team if you wanted to invest in him. And then Noah Whittington was at $50.32, and Jordan James, who had kind of contemplated, was at $24.50. I think all reasonable prices. And then finally on defense, it was actually Evan Williams was the highest price per share at $65.90. He's got a lot of tackles. He got 226 in his career. So I didn't realize it was that high. He also has 39 games played. So he could clearly add that. He could finish with over 300 tackles in his career if he has a good season and stays healthy this year at Oregon. Other guys, Tysheem Johnson was at 53. He was very productive in only 26 games played. And then a lot of guys in the mid-30s. Birch, 38, like we talked about. Jacobs, 36. Mace Funa, 33. And one more person, Casey Rogers, $34.07. Thought he's been a productive guy in his shortened amount of games, only 27 career games played.
I wanted to do some Bo, but the price was just so high.
Too high.
And
Price of the brick, man.
And then I'm betting on him actually being like taking a step, which I think he can, but at the price, it's just that was tough. I didn't think it made a lot of sense. Jared, maybe you could, I don't know if this is asking too much, and could you put it the Google Doc link on the YouTube, or is that too much just so fans could also take part, or is that dangerous?
Oh yeah, no, I can do that. Okay. The disclaimer: I'm not good at math. My mother will tell me that I am good at math, but I am not. I'm only good at like computer sciencey stuff. So I'm not good at math. Don't make fun of my formulas, and I will try to keep this as updated as I can. But sometimes we get a little too busy. I don't know when we're going to come back to this. Probably bye week. I think Eric said bye week.
I think bye week makes sense to revisit. We'll have more time at that point in the year.
Yeah, so that'll be what, 5 games into the year?
Yeah, it's about
halfway. Then, yeah, so
post bowl game.
And post bowl game. Yeah. Okay. That sounds good.
I mean, we could even do bowl. I mean, because we will have a little time before the bowl. We could do an update leading into so we can know like kind of where the standings are.
End of regular season.
Yeah, end of regular season maybe.
Plus, by that point, I can't anticipate a bowl game unless there's 2. Unless Oregon makes the playoffs, I can't anticipate like the the standings between us 3 really changing. Like I think after 12 games, it should be pretty obvious as to who is going to win.
But maybe it's really close, and then the bowl game ends up deciding it, and then we're sitting there.
Do we want to throw in this is just a total idea, but do we want to throw in the idea that we could cash in on some of our winnings to buy more at a later date?
Oh wow!
Boy, we can if we want to go after week 5, like maybe
we do after week 5. Yeah, maybe we can.
Yeah, we'll get one opportunity. I think during the bye week is good. Maybe not even to cash in, but hypothetically, let's say Trayshawn Holden is out for the year, and he played 2 games and had a season-ending injury. So you want to liquidate your cash from him and then go invest in somebody else. So I think that's fair. But only once. You can only do it for one time and one player. So you got to figure it out.
I like that. Let's keep that.
Good idea. All right, let's take a quick break. When we come back, we'll dive into some predictions for Saturday's game against the Portland State Vikings. All right, welcome back to the Autzen Audibles Podcast. Prediction time, diving in, like we said, to Oregon versus Portland State, 12 p.m. kickoff at Autzen Stadium, Pac-12 networks. The order is offensive team, offensive player, defensive team, defensive player, and then we go into our score predictions last but not least. I'll lead off with the offensive team. I think despite 4 new starters along the offensive line, Oregon's offense is going to just dominate the line of scrimmage, and this team is going to run for 325 or more yards in this football game. A lot of that is going to come via the running backs. Bo Nix will get it maybe a little bit, but 325 yards or more by Oregon's offense. They're not going to show a lot from a play perspective, or the library, as Dan likes to now call it.
I like the library term, by the way. I thought that was new. He's got some fun phraseologies, I'll say. I thought I'd get a little creative here, and I'm going quarterback, running back, wide receiver, and tight end. Each of those position groups scores a touchdown.
Ooh.
I didn't want to go offensive line because I don't know if they're going to run that Josh Connerly tackle eligible again. Kenny's now in Tempe, so I stayed away. But I think there's because I expect this game to be very lopsided. I figured we just kind of have a little fun with it and throw something out there, and this will give me something to be following up in the press box a little more closely. So, Bo Nix scores a lot of touchdowns last year on the ground. He's healthy now. It seems like he wants to run. He mentioned that Jared mentioned the coaches show. He talked about the value of running on that show. Mm-hmm. The running backs, pretty self-explanatory. They're going to be involved. And then I think between Troy Franklin and all the other guys and Terrence Ferguson at tight end, I think all those position groups have a decent chance of getting in the end zone. I didn't look up how many times that actually happened last year, but it's probably not as many as you would think. It would be my anticipation, just because the touchdown production from the tight end room was either Terrence Ferguson scored 2 touchdowns or there really wasn't much touchdown scoring. So, so that's kind of where I landed. All 4 of those position groups find the end zone.
I like that. That is creative. I was not very creative in my offensive team stat. I'm setting the over-under at 550.5 yards for the team offense. I'm taking the over. We went through the Washington stats a couple of days ago on our podcast. They had 617 yards, 300 something through the air, and 240 on the ground. I think Oregon will. I don't know if they'll hit 600. I think they'll get over 550. And I say that because of the running clock. I think this will be an opportunity. I also we'll get to our score predictions later, but I think the running clock, with how often Oregon is going to run the ball this year, is going to be a difficult thing to kind of blow teams out and score 60 or 70 points. So, and that's why I have the offensive total mildly low. Last season, I probably would have bumped it up a little bit, but there's going to be some opportunities in the second half where I don't think there's just going to be any plays that are getting off because of it. But I still think they'll get over 550 yards.
I like it. I like that as well. Offensive player here, Jordan James leads the Ducks in rushing yards, and this is where I got creative. He is going to hit at least half of his total rushing yards of 189 last season. So that means he's got to go for 94.5 yards.
This is literally my prediction.
Oh boy.
Yeah, that's why I went like this. I said all purpose, not rushing. I said all purpose. Okay. But same exact concepts. Yep.
So I've got him at 94.5 yards rushing. And I think he leads the team in rushing yards this season. Or not this season.
Whoa.
This game.
That would have been
That's not my pick.
Wow.
That would be yeah. I'm in total agreement that Jordan James is gonna probably play way more snaps than Bucky or Noah combined in this game. I would expect he's basically out there for, I don't know, the entire middle portion of the game, and at some point you expect Dante Dowdell and Jaden Lamar maybe to pop in there and handle things in the fourth. But I'm with Matt. I think Jordan James is going to have a lot of a big role. He's going to be very involved because of, I think, the outcome of this game. And I don't think it's kind of similar to the spring game where I'm not sure if we saw hardly any Bucky Irving or Noah Whittington in that one. It was a lot of Jordan James and the two freshmen. I think it's going to be kind of similar here. So I'll say lead. I said all-purpose yards. I was actually just pulling it up to see if it was viable to predict he would outproduce all of his all-purpose yards from last year, but that'd be 195. So I'm not quite that high.
That'd be an awesome game.
That would be
that'd be a great
incredible
second half.
So I'll just roll with what Matt said basically and say half of last year's, because I was trying to figure out. It's interesting. He only had 6 yards receiving all of last year, so including all purposes, maybe we'll see. Maybe his role in the offense will be a little larger this year.
So I agree with you guys that Jordan James is going to be playing a lot and probably a significant amount in the second half. However, I've got Bucky Irving for 100+ yards, 2 touchdowns, all in the first half. That's my prediction. I think
first half over under here. I like it.
Yeah, first half, 100 yards, 2 touchdowns. I think that Oregon's going to get the run started early. Portland State, as we kind of went through in our last podcast, really off script went through. They lose a lot of their defensive players. They lose a lot of their defensive linemen who are their most talented guys from a season ago.
Yeah.
I think this will be an easy test for Oregon's offensive line. Again, I think Oregon's offensive line is good. I think they'll have an easy time here, and I think Irving could, break free. Like this could happen in like 3 total touches, like 2 50-yarders that go to the house. So all in the first half, 100+ yards, 2 touchdowns.
I was just going to say, I almost feel like for this one to hit, his touches almost have to be below like 11 because of exactly what you said, Jared. Like a 40-yard run and then a 37-yard touchdown run.
Yep.
And that's 2 of the 100 yards.
Mm-hmm.
You guys remember last year, this was the inside joke because I kept betting Bucky, and he kept being like 93. I think there was one game he actually got over 100 and then lost 3
and then he lost a yard
underneath it or something. So good luck. Maybe new year, new Bucky. He gets over
new
100.
Year, new Buck.
I like it.
Yeah.
All right. Defensive team prediction. I went kind of boring on this one. I said they'd have at least 3 turnovers, but the one thing that I would make it a little harder for is 3 interceptions. I think the secondary gets some picks, 1 or 2 of them being nice plays by the DB or the linebacker, just going underneath the route or whatever, catching the pass. And then a third one being either like a tipped ball that is just easily caught, can't speak English apparently, caught by a linebacker or something, or a throw that just sails way over the head of a target right into the lap of a DB. So three turnovers, but they're all interceptions by Oregon's defense.
Usually when we do this, I'll have like already published my Scopodamus a little beforehand. I haven't done that yet. So Matt has no idea that we've gone, again, this is a duplicate. That's exactly what I had written down, which is annoying. Get off of my spreadsheet here because I'm looking at it. It's like it's just the same thing. And my reason for 3 was that's the quarterback Chechere's career high. That was against Idaho last year. He actually didn't throw any picks against Washington, which was surprising. He played very poorly and they got absolutely boat raced. But yeah, I'm going with the same thing as Matt again, which gosh, if you're defensive, like if we like match all these up, it's gonna be, I don't even know what to do.
You guys are on the same damn page today. That's impressive.
We don't compare notes. There's no notes to compare.
No,
sure
never.
Don't.
No,
we sure don't.
We come locked and loaded. I'm setting the over/under on tackles for loss at 6.5, and I'm taking Oregon over. I think that this is going to be a potential bloodbath along the offensive and defensive line in the trenches for Oregon versus Portland State. And I like the opportunities that I'll kind of get to later from some of the secondary members to come down and have some actual speed out of the star spot and make some plays behind the line of scrimmage. I like Oregon's linebackers in this scenario. I think they could find, I guess those would be sacks, but Sacheret is going to be a guy who's behind the line all day long and trying to get out, and just tripping him up is going to be successful for Oregon's tackles for loss total. I think that the defense against an inferior opponent will try to play like they have something to prove from last year. So I expect them to come out with their hair on fire.
I like that one as well. Defensive player, Jared, I hope I didn't do this one, that you have equal as well. But Devin Jackson leads the team in tackles with Eric. Did I do it?
No, you did not. Not at all.
Okay. I saw your face.
We're independent thinkers.
Just this time. Just
this time. Devin Jackson leads Oregon in tackles with 8 as he gets a lot of run in the second half. Much like Jordan James for the offensive one. I don't think we see a lot of Jeffrey Bossa. I don't think we see a lot of Jamal Hill. I almost had Jamal Hill because just like Eric with Bucky, Jamal Hill was my guy that I continued to just pick. Maybe the last 2 years. But I went with Devin Jackson thinking a lot of the starters aren't going to play a lot in this game. They shouldn't play a lot in this game. Enter Devin Jackson, freak athlete, played in a couple games last year, and this is his opportunity to show out. Plus, I want the stock value to go up, so I'm hoping he helps there too.
Obviously.
That's good. I'm also, as we know, very high on. I think we're all very high on Devin Jackson for quite obvious.
This is Jared's guy. I mean, Jared
guy.
Leads the Devin Jackson bandwagon.
This is like an addendum to my team one. I'm saying that the 3 interceptions that happen are all from transfer players. To make it a little bit more bold. So it's like an Evan Williams gets an interception, like a Kyrie gets an interception, and a Taishim gets an interception. So it's 3 different individuals, all of them transferred. It's not just those 3. It could be any transfer player on defense.
So it's a defensive group prediction.
It's like an individual and a group. It's a little bit of a both. But yeah, it's in
the rules.
Yeah, I mean, I think Matt did this a little bit last year, but maybe I shouldn't desire to be.
Hey man, we're starting clean this year. We could end those group goals.
I think I'm making it more difficult on myself though. This
yes, hardly any of those ever hit for me. So if Eric wants to make it even harder,
I need all 3 to be transfer players. That's gonna take. That's not easy. There are a lot of them, but it's not a sure thing for sure.
Could get a Jordan Burch interception. He does have one in his career.
I would love that. That would play.
How does that happen? Not to sidetrack, but like, is it him just jumping up in the air and grabbing
the Mace Spuna
really
effect.
short?
Yeah. It's a short out route and he just jumps up.
Or is it a tipped ball that he just kind of like corrals?
Could be that. Either or.
I thought it was a screen pass that he jumped.
For Burch's interception?
Yeah. Having watched highlights, but yeah.
Yeah, he just plucked it. Athlete. It's like JT Tuamalau when he played against Penn State. Just jump up and pluck it. Okay. I've got Taishim Johnson here. He's going to be my defensive individual. I have the over-under at 6.5 tackles, and the over-under on tackles for loss, as I kind of previewed in my defensive team prediction, at just a half. So I'm going over on both. I think I'll have at least 7 tackles and 1 tackle for loss. I'm excited to watch Taishim Johnson play. I think he's going to provide a physicality that hasn't really, from the star specifically, that hasn't really been seen since like probably the 2019 Ducks, where they kind of rotated a couple guys around at star. And when Javon Holland was back there, he could lay the wood. Even Brady Breeze was good at hitting. I think it's going to be fun to watch him. I think he's going to be all over the field. I'm going to have him probably playing strong safety. At least that's what my defensive depth chart predictions have said. Yep. I think that's going to be a very comfortable spot for him to be. You kind of look at because Bennett Williams played there a lot last season. So he's going to be in that role where he's going to have opportunities to make open field tackles. He's going to have opportunities to potentially rush the passer on a 3rd and long and have some simulated pressure from Dan. So I like Taishim here. Over 6.5 tackles and over a half tackle for loss.
I like it. My concern, Jared, is do you think he plays a lot then? Or is he just a highly productive player when he's on the field in the first half?
I don't know. Both. I honestly don't know. I would imagine they play the defense a little bit longer than the offense. to get a little bit more chemistry. Like, I kind of think, and we'll get to this in our predictions, but I'll just kind of lay it out right now. I kind of think the offensive line is going to be there in there for a long time to get some chemistry, to get some connection. Even if like Ty Thompson goes into the second half, I think it'll still be the starting O-line. And I kind of feel the same way about at least the secondary for the defense.
I agree. I would agree with both those comments. All right, let's go into score picks. I think this game is going to be over by midway through the second quarter. This is going to be very similar to what we saw with Oregon against BYU when they rattled off, 7 or 8 straight drives with touchdowns. I think Oregon's offense is going to be unstoppable. I think Oregon's defense will create some early turnovers, which will help accelerate the scoring for Oregon. That's why we get such a high score. I'm going Oregon 63 with Portland State tacking on 17 second half points. So 63-17 when this game is over, or that's when Portland State does some of their scoring. But I don't know where I saw this, if it's on the board or not. Maybe you guys have saw this or not. But Bruce Barnum, Portland State's head coach, has also talked about once the game kind of gets out of hand, pulling his own starters so that he ensures that they're healthy for games down the road as well, which I don't know if that's a true comment. I think I saw it on our board. I quickly looked for the quote, but there's not a lot of Portland State stories out there. But that could be a factor that could maybe limit things for the Vikings. If they pull their starters too and they don't play a full game, that could make this game get really ugly real quick.
That is interesting. It's also interesting because you rarely hear coaches talk about what they would do in those outcomes, right? Like even Dan was asked, I think that was his first question he was asked yesterday, about do you hope to get a lot of guys in? And he was saying, I hope to win the game, and then that stuff will figure itself out. It's interesting that Bruce was already thinking in those terms at this point. So
he's also a different coach, very different coach.
Oh, I actually, he's fun to listen to. He's a character. Yes. There's no question. And you probably need to be in a role like this. So Oregon and Portland State have played 5 times previously. My pick is pretty simple. I just found the average score for each team in those games. Oregon won all 5 previously by a lot. So the actual average score in those meetings is 58-8, and I'm just going to say that's the score. Not much more than that. Just thought it was just to go for 2. I don't know. That's just that's what the math told me. 58 is also kind of a weird number. It's going to take some
very strange
2 points or some missed extra points and a field goal, something like that. Something weird will happen. Safeties. But just in general, my thought is this game is lopsided. And I will say that this does not take into account the new clock rules, which I think Jared is wise to bring up because it could limit some of the offensive production in this game. And for those unfamiliar, it's just basically the clock no longer stops on a first down unless it's in the final 2 minutes of each half. So we're basically going to closer to professional rules, which I don't mind, and it'll slow the game down a little bit. I think I saw somewhere that it cuts about 6 to 8 plays per game out approximately. At least that's what it did in week 0. So that's something to kind of monitor. I didn't really take that into account, as you can tell, because 58-8 is probably very unlikely to be the exact score. But from a historical perspective, I thought it was worth kind of acknowledging that these games are never very close, and this is what the average is.
There you go. I've got a very similar score. I got 56-10. I think I kind of took into equation the new clock rules. I guess my worry, if I'm really hoping that Oregon correctly picks or correctly scores 56 points, my worry, I was talking about this with James Crepio, the Oregonian, is what if Oregon's ahead 35-0 and they're heading into the second half, and they just throw 14J out there and they just run the ball 3 yards in a cloud of dust. They take off 40 seconds every single time. It could be the end of the third quarter by the time Oregon gets to the 12-yard line. So there's a chance that happens. I'm not sure it will, just because that many running plays in a row could get some guys fatigued. Some injuries might happen. So maybe not. But there is that possibility that Oregon just is up by a plenty and just runs the ball for the rest of the game and doesn't score in the 50s, maybe barely into the low 40s, which I'm sure some fans would get their, pants in a bundle and be kind of upset about that. But I got 56-10. I think they score. I think they do a lot of it in the first half, like Matt said, kind of get some interceptions, maybe a fumble recovery, give their offense another chance to take some chances. There you go, and score over 50 points.
So we're all predicting a cover of the mythical 42.5 points.
I believe so.
Yeah, I've got 50. Jared had
46.
46, and Matt had 46, I think. Yeah.
Yes. All right. We either are going to hit it strong or we're going to crash and burn with that mythical fake betting line.
I think it's pretty likely
it's pretty fair.
Yeah, I was going to say, I feel like that line's pretty reasonable considering where these two teams are at. So I think this is I think all of our scores are kind of in the right ballpark.
So since 2010, Oregon has played Portland State twice before, 69-0 in 2010, and then 62-14 in 2018. I saw someone also talk about with me. We were talking about score outcomes and stuff, and he said Oregon better beat 55-12, and that's what Oregon did in 2006. And if you remember that, 2016 was not a good football team. So if they don't score in the 50s, that could be some concern. Unless it's like what Jared said, where we get just some drives that just take 9 minutes of game clock.
Was 06 Bilotti's only season without a winning record? Is that what that was? Is that the year they lost?
I'm trying to think. Is that 06 or is that? Yes, that is 06 because they lost to Indiana week 1.
Okay.
Yes.
Hoosier.
That was a bad day.
That was a bad day. I remember. I was in high school. Everybody was very unhappy with that. Oh no, sorry. It was 2004 was the year they went less than 500. 2006 though, they that was his 7-6. That was his.
Yes, 2006 was the Vegas Bowl where everyone got drunk before they went and played in a football game, which was hard to do.
Yeah, that was
liquid courage.
38-8 against the Mormons Mormons
did not
BYU who did not consume any alcohol that night.
Yes. All right, that's gonna do it for us on this edition of the podcast. Next time you hear from us, it'll be post game from Oregon versus Portland State. We'll have post-game reaction on there. Go to deckterritory.com leading up to the game for full coverage. Also sign up with a VIP membership, 50% off, or upgrade if you're a current subscriber and you're monthly. You can get that annual subscription bumped up as well. Until Saturday night, you've been listening to the Autzen Audibles Podcast.
Talk to you later, folks.
Peace.